Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Mass Effect 3 Multiplayer and 7 Academy Part 23. In this episode, we'll be covering the Geth Trooper Soldier, who is one of the best primers and crowd control units in the game. So let's check out his powers. So of course what makes the Geth Trooper Soldier really great is Flamer. Of course, he's just one of two units in the game who has Flamer. The other is the Vorcha Sentinel. And what Flamer does is it fires a powerful short-range flame attack, just like a flamethrower. And what you're able to do is use this on whole hordes of enemies at once. And this will prime them for fire explosions that anyone else on your team who has something like Overload, Warp, Incinerate, concussive shot, anything that can detonate a fire explosion can then use on those on that group of enemies to be able to detonate that for a fire explosion and do tons of area effect damage. And you can really just wipe out whole hordes of enemies really fast with this. And of course you can use this on bosses as well to be able to shred away armor and shields and of course health. And it's just really great to have, a Geth Trooper on your team to be able to do tons of damage just, consistently. Really good DPS on your team. So taking a look here at how to rank Flamer, of course, going up to rank 4 here, we have damage versus reach. I definitely suggest going with reach on this because being able to stay as far away as you can from the hordes enemies that you're going to be hitting with your Flamer, you really want to have that range, and increasing that by 50% really does make a difference. And to be honest, you really already do enough damage in my opinion with Flamer, so while it certainly wouldn't hurt to have the extra damage here, I definitely suggest going with range. It definitely helps, just especially if you're in a long hallway area where you may be really exposed. Being able to stay as far away as possible and having that extra reach is going to help you out a lot. So moving on here to rank 5, we have damage versus duration. Like I just said here, this is where you're going to be able to make up for not using damage in rank 4. So definitely go with damage here. In my opinion, this duration is definitely not important. I definitely suggest going with damage here because you already are going to have for your duration 5 seconds, and that's really plenty of time to use for Flamer, because keep in mind the main point of this is really just to be able to hit hordes of enemies, and once again in the game of course I'll show you how to do crowd control with this and be able to just hit as many enemies as possible during that 5 seconds that it's going. So you really just want to be able to hit as many enemies as you can with it, just to be able to prime them for a fire explosion. Of course I won't be able to demonstrate this once I'm in game because I'll just be by myself, so I won't be able to detonate my own fire explosions. But of course you'll be playing with someone on your team who definitely will have a power to be able to help you out with that. So once again, go with damage here. And with rank 6, we got armor damage versus shield damage. To be honest, this is something that you could really go either way with. However, I prefer going with armor damage on this simply because I'm going to be using a Rieger carbine for my weapon, and I'm going to be using that to be able to strip shields. So I'm going to strip shields, and then I'm going to use my Flamer to be able to use to do armor damage on the bosses. So that's really the combo you're going to be using for that. And of course I'm going to be using disruptor ammo with my Rieger carbine, which will of course also help with keeping shields down, so that you can just take those shields down and hit them with the Flamer, and go back and forth with using Flamer when that's out, and then also using of course your weapon. So that's really what you're going to be doing. And moving on here to fortification. So of course fortification is really best for damage protection. That's really what it's for, just some extra shielding. So you have durability versus melee damage. The Geth Trooper does actually have a really good heavy melee, although his light melee is really bad. Probably one of the worst light melees in the entire game. It takes a really long time to complete the animation. It doesn't do very much damage. So I definitely suggest only use the heavy melee with the Geth Trooper Soldier, and of course I'll demonstrate that in the game. It's great for finishing off enemies, especially mooks. So definitely go with durability here, just to give you that extra damage protection. I know 5% isn't very much, but I think it's useful here. And with rank 5, of course, we have recharge speed versus power synergy. And of course, recharge speed is just with your shield. So with your power synergy, I definitely suggest going with this because, once again, this is a very power-based kit as you're going to be using Flamer as much as possible. So you really want your extra damage and force on Flamer to be used here. So extra 30% is definitely really useful. And really, you're just going to be turning on Fortification and just leaving it on for the whole rest of the game. You don't need to ever really purge it with this build that I'm showing you. So last year for rank 6, we got Power Recharge versus Durability. In my opinion, the Power Recharge speed is perfectly fine with this, and I don't really need to put anything more into it. So I'm going to go with Durability just to give me some extra damage protection here. Alright, and then moving on to Hunter Mode. So Hunter Mode is is really an awesome passive power. It's basically what it allows you to do. Let's just go to the first one here. So it gives you faster movement, allows you to see through smoke and objects, more weapon power and melee damage, greater weapon accuracy, and your shield, although your shields are reduced at 50%, which is the trade-off. So you get all these awesome perks. However, you get your shields reduced by 50%. And what I'm going to be doing to counter that, though, is I will be using, so let's just go over to equipment really fast. I'll be using a Cyclonic Modulator 3, and that will help to counter that 50% that Hunter Mode is going to take off. And of course, as I just went over with Fortification, that's also going to give you the extra 5% damage reduction as well as this 10%. So that's an extra 15 right there for your shields. Alright, so looking at rank 4, we have Power Recharge versus Weapon Accuracy. Since I'm going to be using the Reeker Carbine, weapon accuracy is not a problem at all. I'm going to only be doing close range and working to get headshots with that. So that's that's not at all a problem. So I'm going to go with Power Recharge speed here, and this of course will allow me to have an extra 20% of my recharge speed, and that's why I didn't decide to use that with Fortification or anything like that, because this extra 20% when you have Hunter Mode on is perfectly enough to be able to recharge your Flamer. So that works for that. And of course, if you're not going to be using the Reeker Carbine, if you're going to be using a different shotgun or whatever else you're going to be using, you may want to go with this instead. However, Power Recharge speed is what I suggest. For rank 5, we got Power Damage versus Rate of Fire. Once again, Rate of Fire is really not too important with the Reeker Carbine. It already is highly effective, and especially with the other equipment I'm going to be putting onto it, it's going to be really powerful already. So once again, I'm going to be just increasing my powers by 15%, so putting even more into Flamer just to make it even more effective. And then last year with rank 6, we got Speed and Vision versus Damage. So with Speed and Vision, this is increased movement speed by 10%, and this will also increase the range of your enhanced vision by 60%. So of course, what enhanced vision does, it allows you to see enemies through walls, which is really, really great. So I definitely suggest going with Speed and Vision. This extra 10% damage really doesn't compare to having 10% movement speed. So you're going to be running real fast, and plus you're going to be able to see enemies through walls. Combine that with a strong Reeker Carbine and Flamer, and you got a real killing machine here. If you're doing this right, you're going to be getting tons of kills. Usually whenever I play with this kit in Platinum, I'm usually, the top spot, getting so many kills, doing so much damage. I mean, this is such a great DPS kit in this game. It really is an awesome kit. All right, so networked AI here. I just have the first 3 slots here, and this is, of course, just for extra weapon damage as well as power damage and force bonuses. My opinion, this is really all that you need to do with this. Like I said, if you're going to be using a Reeker Carbine, and you really don't need too much more weapon damage, and also the other powers that we're going to be using here do enough, in my opinion, to add to power damage, that this is really not too necessary. So that leaves the last one here, which is advanced hardware, and of course this has to do with melee as well as health and shields. So with this, going to rank 4, we got melee damage versus durability. Once again, I'm just going to throw much more into health and shields just to make sure that I'm able to withstand, take as much damage as I need to when I'm using my Flamer. If I find myself out in the open in the field, I want to be able to, make sure I can take that, of course, because, with Hunter Mode here, as we saw earlier, having this reduced 50%, does make you a little bit squishy, but once again, there are ways to compensate that, which I showed you in this build. So You'll have your extra health and shields here with durability, and then moving on to rank 5, we got Martial Artist versus Shield Recharge. So this is what will take care of your real recharge speed with your shield here. And then lastly, you got Power Synergy versus Fitness Expert. So if you wanted to do that instead of going with Fortification here, with reducing... with having your increased damage protection, that's definitely not a bad idea. In fact, if I was going to respec this, that's probably what I would do. This is just what I already had, so you could certainly go for this instead of the extra 10%, because obviously that's your extra health and shield. So that's definitely the way to go, I would say, if you're going to rank this all the way up to rank 6. And looking instead at Power Synergy, you got increased melee damage, power damage. But of course, this is only an extra 30% for 20 seconds after an enemy is killed by heavy melee. You're really not... I mean, I use the heavy melee a good bit, but to me, I would probably rather go with Fitness Expert here. So, like I said, if I was going to respec this kit, that's what I would do. I would have the health and shields bonus instead of Fortification. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so that covers the powers, so let's move on to the weapons here. Like I said, I'm going to be using the Rieger Carbine, which is, if you've seen the other videos in this series, you can see it's absolutely probably my favorite weapon in the game, as in most effective weapon. So what I use with that is the shotgun spare thermal clip, as well as the shotgun high velocity barrel. And of course, as I've mentioned many times before, using this high velocity barrel, this increased weapon weight by 50 points actually does not show up. It actually does not take effect when you're in game. It will show up with the weapon weight, but when you're actually in the game, that is a bug, and it is actually not going to affect your weapon weight. So just keep that in mind, okay? So with equipment here, we got ammo bonus. Like I said, I'm going to go with disruptor rounds, simply because if I'm going to be using flamer, there's really no point for me to use incendiary rounds. I'm not going to waste my incendiary rounds when I'm already going to be doing all I need to do to prime enemies for fire explosions and you know, get that lasting damage on them. So I suggest going with disruptor rounds, and that will just allow you to be able to strip shields really quickly with the Rieger on enemies, and of course it will create a shield regen delay on enemies like Banshees for 100% for 8 seconds. So that's a really great way to keep their shields down, and you know, then be able to continue to kill them. All right, and then with your weapon bonus, if you're using a Rieger, definitely suggest going with either the targeting VI, you know, whatever number you have. I just have a 2 right now. Normally I'd go with a 3. Or, of course, a shotgun rail amp. If you're using any other weapon, you know, use whatever makes sense there. And then for your armor bonus, like I said, I'm going to be using the Cyclonic Modulator 3. Normally I would use a 4 if I had one. This is just what I have right now. If you don't have a Cyclonic Modulator, then you could also go with something like a power efficiency module, or shield power cells. You know, any of those that can, you know, help to buff any of the other things depending on what build you decide to go with. And then lastly here for your gear bonus, we have Berserker Package 5, and of course that's what that's going to do is give me increased shotgun damage and melee damage. Something else I could do with this would be something like Omnicapacitors, which would give me more tech damage and help with my power recharge speed. That would definitely not be a bad idea. And of course, if you also don't have a Cyclonic Modulator, you could also go with your Shield Booster 5, that will give you plus 30% shields, which is a great way to compensate if you depending on what gear you have. Anything else? Let's see. I mean, you could go with thermal clip capacity. You know, that would help if you need some extra ammo for something like a Rieger, which tends to run out pretty quickly. There's probably a couple other options here, but those are really the best ones in my opinion to go with. Alright, so that covers the build, so let's hop into a game here.
A tactically significant area has been located. Enemy forces are advancing. Secure the area. Understood.
Alright, so what I use here for my keybinds For Flamer, I use X, and then for my shield here, I use middle mouse or 3, which I'm going to turn on right now. And then for Hunter mode, I use F. So just turn that on. There you go. There's Hunter mode. You can see that the UI has changed. It's kind of annoying, but you get used to it after a while. So like I said, really what we're going to be doing here is you're going to be using Flamer pretty much as possible to be able to hit enemies, prime them for fire explosions, and get that lasting damage on them that's going to burn away their health, shields, or armor. And then finish them off, of course, with the Rieger Carbine. And once we get to the bosses here, of course, those are ones that you would be comboing with your team, trying to set them up to get fire explosions on them. And of course, also as I mentioned, the heavy melee with the Geth Trooper Soldier is really effective. Strips their shields really quickly, and also just does lasting damage as you stay down, which I'll demonstrate in just a second here. So as you can see, as I use the Flamer, I'm just going to spread it around, be able to hit as many enemies as once. Alright, so when this husk comes around here, here's the heavy melee. As you can see, took about half of its health. And you can stay down with it and it will continue. That killed it. Let's see another one here. And also, of course, you can see with my Hunter mode there, you can see enemies through the walls, which is really helpful. So you can see just how effective using the Flamer is. It really is one of the best powers in the game. It is just amazing at taking enemies down really fast, burning through their health. And of course, using it along with right hand advantage is what you really want to do. Keep yourself covered. And we'll see here when I use this on this brute just how fast it takes down his armor. I mean, that's just this one. That's just using the whole duration of Flamer on him. And you could also see, even though I wasn't using Flamer on him anymore because the duration ended, it was still doing that lasting damage on him as he was burning away. And by the way, with heavy melee, that also does stun the enemies, so that's also a great way just to simply get them off you. Another plus, I would say, of the Geth Trooper Soldier is his dodge. So you can see here, he also has a great roll there and a side-to-side dodge. It's a really great way of just getting out of the way of enemy fire. Alright, so let's just finish this third round and then we'll wrap this up.
Forces have stolen a classified device.
Now, this is going to be pretty simple. Alright, I'll just grab this other device here. Oh. Yeah. I had a feeling that might happen. It's alright. Just got stuck on that corner there. Gotta say, that is one of the things about this game. One of the biggest killers is getting stuck on the corner when you don't really want to take cover. Using that Omni button. Alright, so let's just finish off these enemies. And we'll wrap this up here. A little closer than I would have liked, but I'll take it. Alright, so I think the Banshee looks like the last one here. So like I said, you can use the flamer on her to take down her barriers, and of course that will do that lasting damage to her, as well as this Rieger. And like I said, using disruptor ammo on her, that will make sure that her shields do not recharge for up to 8 seconds once they're down. Of course, using that in conjunction with the Rieger. And wow, man. That flamer just took her down real fast. Okay, so that's going to wrap this up. I hope you found this video useful. And in the next one, I think we're going to be jumping into... Let's see, I think getting into Platinum. I'm going to do a video about Platinum play. So, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. capnbozzy out.